Do you hate sewing zippers? Does the knowledge that with every sewing pattern you are going to sew a tiny piece of plastic or metal that requires perfect stitching, a ton of forethought, and honestly too much work for the less than perfect outcome that's probably going to happen? At least that's what happens with me. Turn you into a frustrated, hopeless, even angry mess? Me too.
So let's not do it anymore.
Uh-oh, my earring. So today I'm going to be showing you some easy alternatives to zippers, specifically using different ways of using ties and tying your clothing to create a closure. I'm thinking this will be a series of videos where I hone in on one specific way to create a different kind of closure than a zipper and kind of group them together with similar ideas used in different ways. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can actually tie your clothing together, circumventing the need for a zipper altogether. Let's go. First up, I'm going to be taking a set of sheets and making them into a tie-back matching set. I'm going to be using the Maisel dress pattern from Mood as a starting point. Both of the patterns I'm using in this video are free, and I will link them in my description. I am personally obsessed with Mood patterns at the moment. So we'll be breaking up this dress into a two-piece. I started with the back piece and added the ties at the back. I picked this pattern because of the V-shaped back, which I could just extend for ties. I made the tie section about 4 inches wide to make it nice and big for a bow at the back, and just extended it to the full length of the fabric. I then cut out the rest of the pieces normally, except I added a few more inches to the top of the skirt pieces so that I could make a waistband with it, and it will look something like this. The first step was to sew all the darts, then it was time to sew the front piece to the back pieces. I really love how simple this pattern is. It probably took me like 4 hours to sew all of these pieces together and basically have a finished garment, including the top and bottom together in those 4 hours, which I thought was really cool. And the tie at the back just ends up making a huge statement, I think. The easiest way to make the top look finished, in my opinion, is to just make a self-lining, so I cut out 4 pieces of every piece instead of 2, and I sewed them together at this point. I left the end of one side of the tie open to slip the piece through to right side out, and then top stitched that seam closed. The last step for the top was to sew the shoulders together. Then I started sewing the skirt pieces together. And since we're avoiding zippers, I'm just going to add a wide elastic as my entire waistband. I was too lazy to get out my iron, so I tucked under the raw edge at the top of the skirt about 1/2 inch and stitched that down first. Then I folded over the top again about 1/2 inch wider than my elastic and sewed that down, leaving a few inches at the back to slip the elastic through. I then threaded a safety pin through one end of the elastic and pulled that through the entire waistband. I then grabbed the 2 ends and sewed them together. I was taught the best way to keep the elastic together over time was to create a square with an X through the middle, which makes it super secure. I then slipped the end into the waistband and stitched the rest of the waistband down. The last step was to hem the skirt, and the first project is done. Now for project number 2, we are totally getting inspired by this top by Little Pipith, I believe, on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, so I'll have to trust the Pinterest post on that one, or Sunday School XO on Instagram. I'll have their Insta in the description if you want to check them out. So from the best I can tell, this is how the top is designed, with one side open with a square panel and 2 ties attached, and the other side has 2 more ties wedged at the side seam. I am once again using a free pattern, which is the Moonflower pattern on Mood. Again, this will be in the description. Now I picked the pattern because of the square neckline, so we're just going to be using the top portion of this pattern. I'm lengthening both the front and back pieces to go over my hips and making the front pieces straight across at the hem. I'm also not going to use the sleeves on this pattern. I then took that back piece and estimated where my chest would be and basically used that to make the square at the front of the bodice. I then didn't have much left over, but I had enough to cut out 4 ties that were 1.5 inches wide and several inches long. I needed a lighter fabric for my lining, which worked out because I didn't have enough fabric left over anyway, and I had a bunch of this white linen and cotton that I'd received secondhand. Once again, I started with the darts. I then stitched the ties by folding the raw edges in and then folding that in half and stitching the quote-unquote open side down. I then used an embroidery stitch to finish off the ends because they were getting a bit too thick to stick into my machine. It was then time to stitch the one front side seam to the back side seam for the one closed side. Then I moved on to the little square, and I needed to hem the 3 sides of the square, leaving one undone to attach to my other backside seam, and I attached the ties on the opposite side. I then attached my lining. If you pick a more comfortable fabric, this one definitely doesn't need a lining, but I happen to need it for me. So I stitched the neckline of the lining and the outer shell together right side to right side, then turned it right side out. I then top stitched the neckline to make sure that the square neck looked nice and symmetrical without the lining popping through to the outside. Then I top stitched the sleeves, side seam, and hem to the lining. The last step was to connect the front square to the back side seam on that open side. Now, I've been throwing a lot of information at you and my voice is getting a little tired, so let's take a little break by watching the bird sanctuary. I feel like it's been a while since I showed it. Okay, break time is over. Now it's back to the last project. If you watched my videos before, you've probably seen this apron dress, which started as a regular dress that I thrifted, but was a bit too small around the hips, so I opened up the side seams. Then I added lacing, and then I tried to tattoo the fabric. I honestly shouldn't have touched this after the first change because looking back, it actually looked really cute, but oh well. So now the tattoo has come off, and at some point I embroidered a cute little dragonfly on it, and the lacings have all come loose or have completely fallen off. So now I'm going to add some ties at the side so that I can either wrap it around or at my sides depending on how I want to wear it that day. So the first step was to cut off the old lacings that didn't work anymore and finish those new edges because linen very easily frays. And then I had to hem those new sides once that was done. The next day, first of all, I didn't realize I was wearing the same outfit as the last project, but these were like a week apart, but most importantly, I realized I needed to shape the front a bit and turn in that area just under the armpit so that it would sit appropriately on my chest. At some point the week before, I'd already chopped off a few inches of the bottom to make the side ties. So now I cut each piece in two. One is larger than the other because one side already has one side finished and the other one doesn't. I then finished all the sides on both pieces, which would be 4 pieces total, and attached them at the side seams a couple of inches below the bottom of my chest. And with that, it is time to show you the final results for all 3 of these projects. And that is it. I think all of 3 of these were relatively simple, and I'm pretty happy with how all of them came out. I once again want to give a special shout out to Sunday School, who was the original design of the top. I've linked their Instagram account below. Yes, I did go onto Instagram, but it was in order to credit somebody, so that's incredibly important. I did hate doing it though. Instagram just gives me a lot of anxiety. But anyway, make sure to give a big old like to this video and comment and subscribe if you liked this type of video. It's a bit different for me. It's like a little veering off the track, not completely, just a little bit. So let me know if you like this type of video and I'll do them more often. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I hope to see you back here next time. Bye. Do you hate sewing?